Violence is always bad. Every single circumstance. Always. If you find yourself in a situation where your life is being threatened and you resort to violence to defend yourself, you're justified in defending yourself. But the violence is still bad. We don't want fighting. We don't want destruction. We want life. We want creation. We want peace, sustainability, and cooperation. Now, obviously, if your life is being threatened, the person at fault is the person threatening your life and trying to take your life. In this story from the Washington Post, they talk about the hero of Club Q, a man who started beating the shooter, subduing him. Now, of course, the view of most people is that this guy is a hero. The violent actions he took helped save people's lives. And the reason why I say the violence is always bad is because it shouldn't have had to happen. It shouldn't ever happen. But this is life. Now, I'll tell you the scary prospect of what this story means, because I'm shocked at what I'm seeing across media and social media. The first thing, everybody recognizes that this is a horrifying and tragic story. A shooting in Colorado Springs inside a gay dance club, an LGBT dance club, Club Q. Now, we don't exactly have any confirmed motives or anything, and people are saying, wait, don't speculate, Tim. One thing I can tell you, though, is about an hour and a half before the shooting took place, Club Q posted on Facebook that they were going to be hosting an all-ages drag brunch the next day. An hour and a half after that, a man showed up with weapons and body armor and began shooting people, innocent people, and killing 5 people. Hate crime, murder, etc. The scary thing about this is that when I see this and I say something like, hey, this is really bad, a shooting like this should never happen, what do I see on social media? What do I see on these forums? There are people that are cheering it on. That scares me. These people at Club Q who were dancing, who were attacked, were not hosting an all-ages drag event, but the club was the next day. The response from people then is that these are groomers and pedophiles and other things like that. And the scary reality is the Antifa's showing up with rifles at these events, and people are protesting. The tension's escalating, and it looks like I don't know how something like this gets resolved. I can only stress we need legislation. We need the police to shut these events down for a variety of reasons, but it's not going to happen. There's not going to be a shutting down of these events. There's not going to be a legislation. And if this is what happens, then I fear what will start to happen is more violence. How do we stop it? That's what I'm trying to find out. There's a guy, a journalist. Don't like him. He's a disinformation peddler. Nate Silver's calling him out. It's actually kind of funny. Nate Silver is calling out Ben Collins, who is a disinformation reporter, they call him. And it's because, Ben Collins insulted Nate Silver's forecasting models or something because he doesn't understand how they work. But Ben Collins is being called out because he went on MSNBC, I think it was MSNBC, and he says that he's written all of these stories about what they refer to as stochastic terrorism. He didn't say those words. He said he's written stories about how the rhetoric is increasing against LGBT people and things like that. I don't even know how to talk about this. I'm worried that this is how we see the ultimate breakdown. This is it. I didn't think it would be this issue. I thought it would be abortion or something. So I tweeted. A club announces they're going to be having an all-ages drag brunch. People are posting photos and videos of what goes on at these events, and it's horrifying. Men walking around, spreading their legs for children, males with fake breasts, exposing them. There was the event, I think it was in Texas, where the big sign said it's not going to lick itself as they had little children running around. It's happening. It's really happening. People have begun protesting. In response to the protesting, leftist journalists like Ben Collins come out and say this is going to lead to attacks and violence. Bill Maher said that these people are attacking these clubs, these events. Then this. Here's the these posts on Facebook are back to back. Okay, people are asking me why I posted this image. This is a single screenshot, not two different ones. Around 10 p.m. So, excuse me. Club Q posted, "Let's prep for a fantastic Sunday fun day. Doors open at 11 a.m. for our noon all ages drag brunch. Join us for a fantastic drink special and even more amazing drag show. Then stick around for an all-stars cast of our freshest faces. We're celebrating Transgender Day of Remembrance with a variety of gender identities and performance styles. Show starts at 8 p.m. The next thing they posted, only a couple hours later. Well, several hours later. Club Q is devastated by the senseless attack on our community. Our prayers and thoughts are with all the victims and their families and friends. We thank the quick reactions of heroic customers that subdued the gunman and ended this hate attack." This guy who attacked this was in the wrong. And there's no question about it. The scary thing to me is that's not what I'm seeing on social media. And it's veiled because nobody really wants to say it. But I'll say it. I think the grooming is wrong. I think the grooming should be stopped by law enforcement. I believe that there should be legislation stopping what's happening. And many of these things are already illegal. And that never justifies what we are seeing here. First and foremost, a guy goes into a club having nothing to do with that event. I'm sorry, he goes into an event. He goes in at Saturday night and he attacks random people. Attacking people outright is wrong, but I don't understand how anybody is justifying this. What I'm hearing from people is they're saying, "Oh, so you expect us to tolerate grooming?" What? No, I'm saying we should condemn this. I don't know. I don't have all the answers, man. I just can tell you that anybody who's calling for violence or who wants violence typically has not experienced it. That's all I can say. Because it's nightmarish what ends up happening. So around 10 p.m., they post about this. The Washington Post reports, moments before midnight, a young man wearing a military-style jacket carrying a long AR-15-style rifle and handgun walked into the club, where the bouncers knew many of the patrons and were known to give everyone else a hard look. Someone mentions they hear popping. It's muffled. Scrolling down, they mention the police were called 11:56 p.m. and 57 seconds. A man jumped on him, grabbed his weapon, and started beating him with it, stopping him. Good. We should not tolerate grooming. We should not tolerate pedophiles. But we should not be encouraging random acts of extremist violence, and we should condemn random acts always. But this is what scares me. The ideological bifurcation has reached a point where I look. Let me play this clip for you.
I do want to say though,
this is Ben Collins. Not a fan of the guy.
Am I doing something wrong here? Here are some headlines that I wrote the last 6 months. Fueled by internet's far-right machine, anti-LGBTQ threats shut down trans rights and drag events. Remember, there was a drag event happening in Colorado.
Okay, hold on. Now, his framing's always off. But yes, people have been protesting these events.
Anti-trans stalkers at Kiwi Farms, which is a anti-trans website that stalks people.
That's a lie. There's people on there who hold those views. It's a forum.
Are chasing one victim around the world. Their list of targets is growing. That was a couple months ago. Doctors under threat from far-right activists for providing trans care. Boston Children's Hospital faces bomb threat after right-wing harassment campaign. There were 3 of those bomb threats. FBI charges Massachusetts woman with Boston Children's Hospital bomb threats, so they found one of the people. At least 20 Republican politicians have claimed that schools are making accommodations for students who identify as cats. That was before the midterms. Here are 3 more from my colleagues in the last 3 weeks. As election nears, some conservative groups have ramped up anti-trans campaign ads. Far-right figures appear to be testing Twitter's boundaries for anti-LGBTQ speech. GOP senator targets TikTok influencer with anti-transgender taunt.
Okay, you get the point. Here's what I want to say. We shouldn't tolerate what these people are doing to kids. No question. But not tolerating something doesn't mean in any way defending what we see with random acts of violence. There's a lot of horrible things that are happening with kids, and I view it much like lobotomies. We often talk about what's happening with children being sterilized and castrated. Europe is banning this. Tavistock in the UK is getting rid of this. There are videos of adult men with breast implants exposing them to children. That's it, like literally. There's photos out of Canada where a man wore big fake fetish toys to school. Interesting symbol in his classroom that, you know. There's the thing out of Texas I mentioned where the kids were at a drag event and it said, it's not going to lick itself on the wall. Then you have certain children who are being told to do drag. They'll lie to you, like Ben Collins says in this clip. It's not a hypersexualized thing. Except drag shows literally are stripping. 100%. No question. Now, here's what's funny. In response to pointing these things out, the left is claiming that I'm engaging in stochastic terrorism. No, I've always condemned violence. And I'll tell you one simple political thing. It absolutely helps. We are not in the era where standing in a building gives you political power. If people get scared, they flock to the person who they think will keep them safe or to the people who oppose whatever's making them scared. So what happens with an event like this is that people get attacked and the average person doesn't know anything about it. All they know is violent right-wingers, just like we were told. The Democrats campaign on it and they win votes because of it. That's the political reality. The moral reality is it's wrong to go in and do anything like this. And it shouldn't be supported. But this is what has me scared, I suppose. I tweeted, the grooming's not going to stop. There's going back to the child drag stuff. A little boy taking his clothes off on stage for adult men who give him money. That's grooming. Grooming doesn't mean that you bring an adult toy and hand it to a child. Grooming doesn't mean you do anything physical to the child. Grooming is where you introduce the weakest element of adult sexualized activities so that you can convince a child it's normal. The idea of grooming is basically this. It's something called reasonable boundaries. If you go up to a random person on the street and then point and say, "Excuse me, sir, see that random person over there? I want you to strike them." They'd be like, "Are you nuts? Get away from me." No. You cannot convince someone to move beyond their reasonable boundaries. It is unreasonable to ask someone. Now, if you said, "I want you to go over to that person and hug them," they'd still probably say no. Less averse to doing it because hugging is not a destructive act. So how do you convince someone to hug or to hate? It's essentially what grooming is. Now, grooming specifically refers to the ideology, but mostly to the adult activities. But what you'd do is you'd say, that guy over there he said you were, you were dumb, or you'd insult him. And the guy's going to say, "What? I didn't say anything." You groom him. You slowly massage the person towards the direction. Now, obviously, you can't do this in one step to a random person. The way it works with people in social engineering is you say something like to someone who loves Obama, you say, "Obama's fantastic. I just wish he wasn't doing the drone strikes." Most people will agree with that. You've now got them to move over a tiny bit. Imperfection. I believe it was the Chinese who did this. I think it was the Chinese during Vietnam or something like that. What they would do is I think it was the Chinese working with the Vietnamese. I mean, maybe I'm wrong about that, but I think it was the Chinese. They would take American POWs and they would tell them, "If you want to eat, tell me something you don't like about America." Well, come on. There's tons of stuff not to like about America. I mean, we love the country. It's got a lot of problems. And so the guy would be like, "Well, are you serious? Yeah, okay, I don't know. It's a lot of fat cat politicians, Here's your food." The next day they say, "Tell me something else you don't like about America." Eventually, they've got you writing out a huge list of everything you hate about the country. They are grooming you. In this instance, what they do is drag performances are where adult men dress like women and then remove clothing and or do the splits or thrust or drop it low, things that are sexual in nature. And they do it for money. They walk around taking money for the crowd, comparable to stripping. Not all stripping, and people don't know this, not all stripping is nude. They call them bikini bars. They call it go-go dancing. Not all states allow women to get naked on stage. So some strip clubs, many of them actually, in these states, well, all of them in certain states, the women have to wear full clothing, a sports bra and underwear or a bikini or something like that, a bathing suit. So when they're stripping their clothes off, they are still not nude. Similar to drag. They have children do this. Legislators aren't doing anything about it in certain states, in blue states namely. But it's also happening in red states. You've got people that are, oh, look at that, I'm trending now. There you go. Probably because of what I'm talking about. It's a scary thing to say. It's a scary thing to bring up. And I had to think about whether or not we could talk about this. We want the grooming to stop. We want there to be no violence. We want both of those things to happen, which means peaceful protests, which means legislation, which means solving the ballot harvesting problem, which means winning elections. It means condemning overt violent actions. It means condemning extremists or people who want to engage in what they would view as vigilantism. It needs to stop. The violence. But I'm concerned that there's no appetite for the stopping of it. When I pointed out, similarly in agreement with Ben Collins, a man I do not like, that it looks like this guy was targeting over the drag event, the left actually attacked me for it. I think because they want fomentation of violence or escalation. I didn't say civil war. I said if the grooming doesn't stop, if the legislators can't stop it, if people are continually calling for violence, then you tell me what happens next. And surprisingly, the thread is filled with leftists saying, I'm encouraging more violence, and people on the right saying, we refuse to tolerate pedophiles. And I'm like, holy crap, dude. I mean, this is what I fear is where we go. So you tell me what's going to happen, I guess. I am not someone who believes that we solve problems through violence. I think war is bad. I think it makes things worse. I think it drops our standard of living. I think it makes these people double down. It makes them get armed security. It makes them get legislative protection. We don't want these grooming events to happen, but the left lies. They say they're not grooming events. They're not. You're encouraging violence by saying they are. They are. They're having adult men perform sexualized events for children. They claim it's not, but they're lying. It's not going to lick itself on the wall. There's no answer to this, man. I'm not going to pretend to know. All I know is that I'm looking at this story and I'm like, is anyone going to bring this up? I'm wondering why no one's really talking about it. I mean, people are talking about it, don't get me wrong. But I'm wondering why it's not been so dominant like many other events. And I'm like, maybe this is why they don't want anyone talking about it, the terrifying realization, the sinking feeling people get. I was originally going to do a segment on fake news, and then I saw this. And I will tell you this, there is a fear. This is a dangerous subject. The left will go nuts. They will try to get me banned. I'm sure YouTube is none too happy that I'm even talking about this event. People on the right are attacking me saying that I'm saying we should tolerate grooming and pedophiles. And I'm just like, there is no middle ground for anyone? Apparently not. I think it's simple, actually, to be completely honest. No random acts of violence, no extremism, no innocent people being attacked. Peaceful protests. That's what the left does. Legislative victories and exposure. I can say one thing. This man who went in there, if it really was about the all ages drag brunch, and we don't know for sure, all he did was help the groomers. And I'll say it again. The violence helps these people. This is why false flag attacks exist, because being aggressed upon empowers you in the information age. Now, I'm not saying that these people did anything wrong. Quite the opposite. These were random people that weren't at an all ages drag brunch. I don't know that this man attacked this place because of that. I think the left is mad partly because they want this to be just right-wing extremism. And very well does look to be, but they don't want it to be about the grooming. They don't want people to hear that that's happening. They want the story just to be that this guy's motivation was that he was a bigot or something. They want it very general. I don't know his motivations. All I know is I want to be able to sit back in my massage chair and put on the news and hear about a sports controversy like Colin Kaepernick kneeling. Have that be our conflict and our crisis. Not this stuff. This stuff terrifies me. But it's only been escalating. And then you get the people who say, anybody who says it's escalating is grifting off you. And I'm like, okay, I'll just never talk about this. It's safer, really, to just ignore the more controversial subjects. So as I sat here preparing my segment that I publish at 1 p.m., I was preparing to talk about fake news, the election, and these journalists who lie and all that stuff. And then I start seeing more about this stuff. I decided to look into it. And I was just like, okay, man, we're so dangerously close to the veil being stripped from in front of us that it's got to be talked about. I don't know. It was kind of crazy for me to see so many people on Twitter. Not necessarily people who follow me, mind you. Ignoring the context of the story, but just saying things like the grooming must be stopped. And I'm like, bro, are you going to come out and say this was wrong? No, they're not. Now that freaked me out. I'm like, I can't believe we're at a point where anyone would entertain this. That's what people don't get. Look, I'm not here to ignore the fact that Antifa are extremist psychopaths as well that have murdered people in the streets. I want to make sure that point is highlighted in this segment. So I have no answers. I have no answers for you on this. We'll see what happens. That's what I do. I opine. We'll see what happens. What is this guy's motivation? He's going to go to prison for a long time. He's a dangerous psychopath. He'd been arrested before, apparently making threats. I got no answers for you. I hope this stuff just doesn't keep happening. I hope it stops. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 4 p.m. at youtube.com/Timcast. Thanks for hanging out.